Hello and welcome to the Buildup here on Balls.ie in partnership with Ladbrokes, where we look ahead to the biggest events of the sporting weekend. Now, the Euros are only just finished. We've got the Olympics in the bag, everything else that's going on, but it's hard to believe the Premier League is just a day away from its return. Delighted to say, once again, we've got Ladbrokes ambassador Kevin Doyle to talk us through everything. Kevin, it's crazy that it's all back. It is disingenuous to say that football is back. I mean, it's never really gone away, and I think when you see the three games tonight where Bohemians, Dundalk and Shamrock Rovers all have genuine chances of progressing through to the next round, it's almost a pity that we're not making more of, it's rare enough that Irish teams go on this kind of run, but for three of them to do it at the same time is just, it's mad. It's weird that they're all playing this evening, isn't it?
I know, yeah, and it hasn't, listen, I played in similar competitions in Europe with Cork City, I don't know how many years ago, 2002, 3, whatever that is now, nearly 20 years ago, and it was no different then, to be honest with you. And we were doing quite well, I remember, and you're always fighting against, the Premier League starting up again, and that takes everyone's media's attention. This is what we're going to talk about in a minute, and everything is dedicated to that, the TV channels, the TV rights, and that's all pushed so much, but you have to... if League of Ireland teams are always trying to fight, keep your head above water and try to get every bit of news they can and push their side of it. And by getting good results, all they can do, keep building, keep getting good results. They have all three of them put themselves in a decent position. So win those games, I'd imagine, will be hopefully the next round. If they get through, we'll see what they do on TV.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you need little moments like McElhenney's goal last week to go viral, and for everybody to kind of see the standard that is there a lot of the time. But to be kind of level with a Dutch team going into a home leg, to be level with a Greek team going into a away leg, and Shamrock Rovers obviously in the lead and having a great chance of actually going through to the group stages. This is it's phenomenal achievement. And people, I think, don't realise the context of that sometimes as to how far behind, resources-wise and everything else, that League of Ireland is against these teams and these leagues that they're facing. So definitely worth a note, and everybody should try and keep an eye on it. And it's a pity that we're not going to be able to watch them on TV tonight. But the Premier League, as we say, is kind of what we're looking at, because I don't know. I just wonder what type of a summer you think it's been, because for me, it's like Man City have strengthened significantly by bringing in Grealish. They've paid 100 million for him. Chelsea respond by paying almost 100 million for a player they sold 6-7 years ago in Romelu Lukaku.
Has that gone through yet, mate?
It's not. I don't think it's not a guarantee, but all the reports suggest that he's on his way for, I think, 98.5 million pounds sterling, whatever the case may be. So look, we talked a good bit about him in the Euros and what kind of a form he's in and what sort of a player he can be for them. They're already European champions. And then United, adding in Sancho, that's long awaited, but Varane, I think, was a bit of a surprise to a lot of United fans when he eventually arrives.
Yeah,
that's a good summer for all three of those teams. And then Liverpool look like they're going to have Van Dijk and Gomez back, and maybe more like the team they were 2 years ago. I know it's easy to say at this time of year, but it all does promise to make for an exciting season, isn't it?
All those good signings, though, they all make sense. They always cancel each other out because it puts them back to a level playing.
Yeah.
So we're all trying to outdo each other. I suppose out of those ones you've mentioned, the one I'm surprised hasn't yet, they may do still, is Liverpool. Trying to think who they signed, and they've lost Wijnaldum, who was so important for them. I'd have thought they'd have had something lined up. They knew he was leaving. I've heard stories of him trying to be linked with Sancho, who had a good European Championships. Yeah, people remember him. He was on loan. He went to Bayern Munich. He was on loan at Swansea, unsuccessfully, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I can't remember how long ago, but he would be sort of like for like replacement. But I'm surprised they haven't strengthened. Obviously, getting Van Dijk's like a new player this season. And when he, if you go back to their form of 2 years ago, they won the Premier League. You put last year down as a blip, maybe in the return to that form. Well, there'll be a massive challenge for Man City, but it's big if they can return to that form.
The one that stick out for me a little bit are Chelsea, though, because what they didn't have was they were playing around with Abraham, Giroud, these guys who Abraham you hope will come through and be a 20-goal a season striker, but what you're getting with Lukaku, and he adds a lot more than goal scoring as well. But if you think of how much Havertz came into it over the course of the year last year, how much those players grew the newer signings, Pulisic looking like a real player, and to think how they did finish the season, they went and won the Champions League. They just seem like a really, really dangerous prospect now, don't they?
Yeah, Lukaku, obviously, I really like him. Struggled at Man United, never seemed to be sharp enough or on form. He still scored plenty of goals, but never looked like the Lukaku of Everton when he was at his best there. But he went to Inter Milan and spoke about this during the Euros. They diagnosed some sort of bowel condition, and he got fitter and better instantly, nearly. So he's coming back to Chelsea, a better player, proven to score in the Premier League. Knows the club. It's not like he has to settle in there, settle into London. It's going to be, should be seamless. It's a massive, massive signing. The only thing with Chelsea, for me, is it's how you go through the managers they've had and gone through, and the success they've had and gone through, and the manager seems to get fired, not long after. Go back to win the Champions League under Di Matteo. He was gone not long. Tuchel's had sort of that honeymoon period where he came over and it all went, fairly well, to obviously brilliantly to win the Champions League at the end of the season. But, does he maintain that? Or what way does it go if he has a bad start? They're just so hire and fire. It doesn't do them any harm. They come back with get another manager, get another bounce, do well, win something. So just interesting to see if he can be the one that lasts a little longer than previous managers, especially ones, like Di Matteo left so soon after winning the Champions League, whatever that was. So that side of things is never really settled at Chelsea, but player-wise. And Werner as well, you mentioned Werner, a lot of criticism. Always looked to be nearly about to score, missed a lot of chances, but he got a lot of chances, and he can't be a bad player. Whatever the reason was, he's going through this spell for the last year of not being able to hit the target, basically, but he got so many chances. If he can, with his pace, and he's a different type of player to what I have with, if he fires a little bit, you'd imagine. I spoke about him last year, he's moving to London in the middle of a pandemic and all that, and what was going on, and maybe just took him a little longer to settle. And it's difficult outside of football. You don't know what's going on. Maybe he can have a good season, because if he goes back to how he played in the Bundesliga, he's like a new signing if they can get him playing well.
We talked about a top six for the last few years, and Leicester are obviously infiltrated that in as well. So it's really 7 teams that have been hanging on to the coattails. It's harder and harder every year, especially with summers like this, to see Spurs, Arsenal, Leicester, or any of the other teams, the likes of Everton or anything like that, hanging on. And actually, it feels more and more like a big four, even when we have these conversations, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's just what they're able to spend, isn't it? Arsenal was that big four for so long. They're the one, maybe, have the financial muscle if they wanted, and the club and the stadium. Spurs, just again, the Harry Kane thing. Why don't they just let him go? They know he wants to leave. He's not happy. Listen, if you get 130 million instead of 150 million or whatever they're looking for, have it all settled so they can sign players. You know what Spurs are going to do, and it'll go down. They did it, I'm thinking, all the way back to Berbatov. It goes down to the last minute and the last day of the transfer deadline, and then they're scrambling around trying to sign one. And they get a load of money, but they can't replace them. And I just don't understand why clubs drag their heels for so long. A player doesn't want to be there. He's given you a long number of years. Harry Kane's been fantastic for them. He's told them he wants to leave. Just listen, come to an agreement. Man City are obviously going to give you a lot of money. It mightn't be the 150 million you want, but if you can get 110, 20, and the form he showed Euros as well, he looked tired, he looked jaded. It might be time for them to cash in on him. I just don't know why they drag their heels for so long, and then that carries on to their whole season. Then it upsets the whole thing. The players they can get in, what they have to spend, the manager, his plans. Financially on the books it might seem good, but as a football club, and you're trying to get players in and build a team, a squad, I don't know, they just seem to do it season after season with Spurs. Daniel Levy gets a pat on the back for it a lot of the time, but I don't know, it just, to me, creates an unsettled club, and then never get a squad together for long enough to challenge to break into that top four you're talking about, because they have the stadium, the training ground, have the money, just can't get it all together.
What do you make of the Kane, Grealish? I don't know if there's many more examples, but this sort of idea. I suppose there's an argument among football fans of Aston Villa fans, a month or two ago before Grealish went. It's old hat now. I'm sure Spurs fans are having the conversation at the moment, though, of, it would mean more for Jack Grealish to win an FA Cup with Aston Villa the way his great-grandfather did than it will for him to go to Man City and pick up a league medal, even though City are going to win it even without him. I'm just wondering, from a player's point of view, where is these guys want to go to the best team, but what's the ambition there? Is it to play with, is it to be part of the best team, or is it like to win medals and so on and so forth? Because again, these medals are going to be won without you, so you're not actually doing all that much. I
know. It's a really tough one, in fairness, isn't it? Like, you're thinking of your career. If he said at Aston Villa, and he's going to get handsomely paid at Aston Villa, I'm sure they made him a great offer to stay. Mightn't have been quite matching what Man City can pay, but he would be a legend forevermore. A bit like Messi at Barcelona. Really, obviously he's left now right at the end, but he's been such a long part of his career there. But then you also see the other side of it, and it's his career. And is he going to win Premier Leagues with Aston Villa? Could he go away for a few years and win stuff at Man City? I'd be more, with Grealish anyway, I'd be more understanding, unfortunately for Man City fans, if it was a Liverpool or a Man United, historically massive club, Barcelona or Real Madrid, where you can't turn them down, really. You can't turn Real Madrid as much as you're a boyhood Aston Villa fan. Man City, to me, listen, people will argue over this one, I'm sure, but it was more manufactured in recent years. It's not. It's more, funded. You can make the case with Liverpool as American money and Man United as American money. But I don't know. It's just a little bit more fake, a bit more PSG-ish than if he goes to a Barcelona or Real Madrid, and that's pure nostalgia or pure, heart over head talk for me. There, maybe it's nonsense, but some teams you can see why players have to go and make that decision. Other teams you think, he could have stayed where he was. But I wouldn't fall out with him. I like the way Grealish went as well. He didn't fall out with anyone. Villa seemed enough to let him go. They got a lot of money for him. And everyone went there. So he was there for a long time as well, wasn't he? And he through the youth system. It seems to be fairly amicable, and they get a lot of money, and they can go and probably spend it the right way, obviously, but maybe come out of it stronger. Aston Villa if they do it right. But it's a tough one. It's you look back on it. I mean, he might look back on it when he's 40 or 50. And go, you know what? I was getting all the money I needed at Aston Villa. I should have stayed there for the short term. Again, I get winning a few medals. I could have stayed at my boyhood club, but he'd only realise that when he's 50. You won't be thinking like that when you're 24 or 5.
Yeah, the City thing is interesting though, because I think you think along the lines of a lot of kind of fans, and like let's take Villa and Spurs and so out of it, it's a neutral thing. But there is that sense there, but players don't seem to have it. That's the thing, because if you think Kane wants to go to Man City, Grealish wanted to go to Man City and went. I don't know if Messi necessarily wanted to go to PSG, but when the time came with Barcelona, he didn't go and say, "Oh, look, I'll go somewhere more romantic." He goes, I'll go to the only place that can afford me. Mbappe plays for PSG, Neymar. It's like these two clubs that seem to have no soul. But I think players think of it in a more sort of, like the basketball, where they get together these super teams and players want to play with each other and things like that. It seems more about that than about old school football mentality of where you play and who for, doesn't it?
Yeah, in fairness to Man City, they got like a coach who you'd love to play for him. Pep
That's a very good point.
That's a massive attraction. And if you're 24 or 5, you have lots of agents and people in your ear, telling you what you should and shouldn't be doing as well, and you let them guide you maybe more than your own heart as well, I suppose. There's a lot of pressure on you to keep a number of people happy, I would imagine. In Messi's case, it probably came at the last minute, and it was a surprise to them, and he had no choice. Everyone else didn't have the budget. Even with him taking a 50% pay cut, most clubs had that money, penciled in for someone else or had spent it already. So the only people who could probably afford him in any shape or form were PSG. He got snookered a little bit. I'd imagine he would have preferred to go somewhere else. Man City had just signed Grealish, or agreed at the time, so that had, they would really be upsetting their team plans by signing Messi when they just brought Grealish in, and he'd be taking his place after spending 100 million on him. So, it is. It's easy for me to say and you to say we're out of it. I'm out of it, and it's easy for me to say now. You romantic side of it, and you think like that. But when you're a player and you're professional and you have different people in your ear, I suppose you just go with the flow.
Can I ask a bit of a random question that between the Grealish thing and the Messi thing interested me? Pep Guardiola said they didn't reveal to Grealish that he was getting the number 10 until he arrived at the stadium and signed, and they presented him with the number 10, and it was seen as this massive deal. And Messi with like romantic going back to the number 30 because obviously 10 isn't available at PSG. Did squad numbers ever matter to you, or did it ever matter to people in your at your clubs?
I don't think. Listen, some lads are more like who's getting the number 10 at Man City. Like, who has been the number 10 at Man City?
It was Aguero. Yeah,
I suppose Aguero's been a legend there ever, but it's not like
famous.
Getting Cantona's number 7 or the George Best's number 7. If you go to Man United, a famous number over 50 years. Like, Aguero's made it famous over the last 7 or 8 years, I suppose. But for Man City, but it's not that. It's not like going to Real Madrid and getting the number 7 or the number 10 there. I remember when thinking back when Reading got promoted to the Premier League, I was there. I was the number 19 in my first season there, and they rang me in the summer and said, "Kevin, the number 9 is available. Will you do you want to take it? Will you take it?" This was the manager or the assistant manager rang me on my holidays, and I was like, "Nah, I'm grand. I've got the 19. Happy with it. Doesn't bother me." And that was grand. He rang me back the next day and said, "Kevin, we want you to take the number 9." And I didn't have sort of a choice in the matter. So, it matters maybe to clubs. I don't know. It didn't matter to me at the time when I signed for, thinking personally, everyone's different. I signed for Wolves, and I think I was 29 or something like that. And again, a year or two later, a similar sort of thing. Another one of the numbers came up, and Kevin, you changed this, and I didn't want to change. I was older then. I said, "No, I'm staying where I am. It doesn't make any difference to me." So, maybe 10, 15 years ago, did it more 1 to 11? Whereas now it's so many numbers, and so I don't think it matters. Everyone can make their own number famous, can't they?
Yeah, but you never remember an issue in the dressing room or something like that about squad numbers, or somebody been taking a number off them or anything?
Not that springs to mind. I remember an issue with a captain's armband being taken off a player, but I don't remember an issue. With a squad number. No, I don't think any player would want to show it anyway. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You demoted or whatever your number got taken, and you wouldn't even pretend I don't care. I don't know. You wouldn't want to be a baby about it, but I don't remember any big issues.
Okay, there you go. I feel like it's just something that's become more important in the last few years, and it's again, I don't know if it's just a different culture or something that seems to be there, where people are so much more open about these things that don't seem to matter but are important.
Yeah. More marketing as well, I suppose. Like Grealish,
yeah.
All over the world is better than Grealish, maybe 37 or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Wear the number, kids want to wear the 10.
So if we're looking at a prediction then for the season, we've kind of talked through some of the big teams. We've kind of skipped over United a little bit. Definite improvement, but a lot of improvement for them to have to make, I suppose. Where do you see the season ending up then, as champions say, and then kind of like the order, the top 4?
I'm still worried about United, the Pogba situation. Another season going in where that's not solved. Due to play him, not playing his last year's his contract, he's wanting to leave. He'd play good 1 or 2 games, then goes great. Pogba's great again. Then he'll have a shocker again. To let that drag on again. I like their signing Sancho and Varane. On paper it looks brilliant beside Harry Maguire. You think, listen, we've sorted that problem out there, but we'll have to see. He has to come to a new league and settle in, and it will. Hopefully, he's a really successful player, and hopefully he'll be able to do that. But I just worry about the Pogba thing again for Man United. Such a big personality scenes in that dressing room as well, and if he's not happy, it drags down everyone a bit. So I'm thinking it's going to be something similar to last year. Man City win the league. I've gone with Liverpool finishing ahead of Man United. They were only 4 or 5 points maybe off Man United after seemingly a terrible season for Liverpool last year. Man United are meant to have had a good season. Liverpool weren't far behind them. So I'd imagine with Liverpool getting players back from injury, they'll finish above United. I'm not sure between Chelsea and Man United, 3rd and 4th. I'd probably go Chelsea and Man United for 4th place then. And then the best of the rest fighting out behind them, depending on what Spurs can get themselves together. Arsenal might get themselves together a bit, but Leicester will probably be in around there again, but I don't see anyone else breaking into the top 4.
There you go. It's interesting to see like City 4-6 on Ladbrokes. Like, it's actually, in a weird way, it's even tempting, but like to think of at the start of a 38 game season that somebody is odds on, and the conversation we even have that's immediately more interesting is the order of the top 4. We all assume. I don't think anybody's not tipping City to win the league this year. It's definitely an interesting situation. In terms of relegation, then it's a lot more, I suppose, open. There's Norwich, Watford and Brentford all promoted. I think a lot of people would want to see Brentford do well. One of your old clubs, Palace, I think in a little bit of flux with Roy Hodgson gone. Burnley are always in this conversation. A few more as well. I think Newcastle finished the season so well this year. We would have been talking last year. We would have been talking about them as well this time last year.
Yeah, it's really hard to call. You're only upsetting people here. Like we have no, like we really can't tell. Norwich could come up full of confidence, won the league, really good last year in the championship. Manager seems really clued in, and he's in, and you know, they're favourites for relegation. Ahead of, they finished a good bit ahead of Brentford and Watford in the league. So it's hard to tell who they've signed. Some of the players you see they've signed, you're not sure, but especially Norwich and Brentford's recruitment is ridiculous. Who they can get players and value for money, and the way the managers have managed to get them playing. Brentford's manager seems like a good character. He should be interesting. He, really interesting thing. Brentford. I don't know if this stat's right or wrong. I read this the other day. Brentford lost 8 of their first 10 games with him in charge, which there's no other club manager would survive that. 8 out of 10 games you've lost, and they managed to they held on to him because they're, from what I read anyway, they're very stat orientated, and the stats said they shouldn't have lost a lot of those games, and they stayed strong and held on to him, and that was a very brave decision. I like the way Brentford are run. New stadium as well. Palace, I would really worry about losing Roy Hodgson. He seemed to just have the guile to keep them up for a number of years now. I would put them in one of the 3. I'd be worried for Burnley as well. Just a quick glancing over who they've signed and who they've lost. They haven't really pulled up trees in the signing department in the summer. Maybe there's still more to come. Watford, you just don't know. They could be to the table and sack their manager and get that bounce that they always seem to get. They're so random, Watford, in the players they sign, the managers they have. I would say Norwich to stay up, Brentford to stay up, and out of those 3 there that you have on the screen, I would have Watford, Palace and Burnley. I think Newcastle struggle. They still haven't sorted out. They're in court now over this ownership thing. It only takes a couple of games to go against them with Newcastle. And I like Steve Bruce, but the fans just turn on them straight away. They lose a couple of games, and he finished really well, and they came through that storm last season. But, over the ones not listed on these odds, I'd have Newcastle. I'd be worried for them. They haven't seemed to really spend a lot of money again. They're still waiting for, if they get these owners, they get the new owners in, they'll be the richest club in the world. So you can see why they're fighting for that. So it'll be a big turnaround.
Yeah. Good news for Joelinton and the boys. Look, I think, as you say, relegation, a bit of a crapshoot, but I do think it's actually good to actually get a chance to talk about these things, because I think Brentford are going to be a fun team to watch in their new stadium with their manager, with all these guys that they bring through. They basically have a new team every year. This is their first team having a second go at a team as well, because they normally the Premier League comes in and takes all their players after every season. So, and Norwich as well, who sold Buendia and
couple of Irish guys at Norwich as well. To keep
exactly, yeah. So all to be looking out for. Should be a fun season. Let's go quickly and do top goal scorer and we'll do 1, 2, 3 and get out of here. So, our top goal scorer, Harry Kane, is still the favourite. We don't know who he'll be scoring the goals for, but he'll be scoring for someone. He's 11-4 in Ladbrokes. Mo Salah 4-1. Raheem Sterling 14-1. Diogo Jota 16-1. Werner, as you mentioned earlier, 16-1. Gabriel Jesus 16-1. We haven't got Lukaku on the list yet because he's not officially signed.
Yeah, Harry Kane. I'd worry for in the Euros. I just thought he looked so off the pace. I know he got his couple of goals, but in the final, from the first minute, he couldn't move. His legs were gone. I couldn't believe he stayed on the pitch for the full game. He just looked wrecked. So I know he's been so many goals season after season, so consistent, but I'd worry for Harry Kane no matter where. If he goes to Man City, he'll get a bucket load of chances, obviously. Probably a great bet then, but yeah, I would go for Lukaku coming back to Premier League. Scores goals everywhere he goes, scores goals every season. Even when he was poor at Man United, he was scoring goals. So I would go for Lukaku. I know he's not officially there. It looks like he's going to be there. Yeah, Lukaku.
Yeah, we can hold on for the Lukaku odds to come up. Obviously, Danny Ings, for some reason, the typo must have been left out there. I don't know what that's about.
Great signing, Mick, by the way. Great signing. Nowhere.
Lukaku, Ings and Watkins up front, the Twin Towers for Villa this year.
He came from nowhere because he was on about wanting to play Champions League football, and he obviously sees something maybe others don't.
He's just putting it off a year next season. Yeah, no, we called that one a teletext signing. Kevin, it was old school. It was 302. Danny Ings is signed for Aston Villa.
There was no rumours or nothing, was there? It was just bang, we signed him. It was brilliant.
Yeah. We want a few more of them before the window closes. That'd be great. Yeah, no more Twitter rumors going around. Okay, let's do this weekend then, because it's starting tomorrow. Brentford and Arsenal, London derby to start the season. But 1, 2, 3, which we play every week on the show. It's free to play on Ladbrokes now. You pick the scores from 3 games each weekend. If you get 1 score correct, you get a €1 free bet. If you get 2 correct, you get a €5 free bet. And if you get all 3, which is difficult to do but absolutely doable, you win €100 cash. So Kevin is going to play it for us here and pick his scores. Norwich versus Liverpool. I always think of Luis Suarez when I think of this fixture, Kevin. I don't know. He destroyed poor Norwich 4 or 5 times.
Love to go against Norwich, didn't he? I'm going to go, you know what? Norwich at home. Liverpool, players come back from the Euros, a lot of players away, and just a stuttering start maybe. They'll have a great season, I think, Liverpool, but I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. I think it'll be Norwich. You'll have that confidence coming up and a buzzing crowd. First game of the season, I think they'll manage to sneak a draw out of that. Newcastle, West Ham. I think Newcastle will have a tough season, but for some reason I fancy him in this game. First home game of the season, crowds back in the stand. Newcastle fans, it's the noisiest place I played when things were going well. Newcastle fans, and I think they'll just get a player to get a bounce out of that. I'm going to go for a 2-1 home win to Newcastle, and finally Spurs, unfortunately, a zip 0-3 Spurs.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
This just seems to be negativity hanging over Spurs. Yeah. New manager. Listen, the manager did very well at Wolves, but he didn't have such a great final 6 months at Wolves, and he's a tough start at Spurs trying to sort out this situation. So I'm going to go for 3-0 to Man City.
Yeah, there we go. That is plunge Spurs straight into crisis mode at the start of the season. Could make some interesting conversations for Harry Kane over the course of the week. So Kevin is going with his 1, 2, 3 picks of Norwich 1, Liverpool 1, Newcastle. Was it 1-0 against West Ham?
2-1.
2-1 against West Ham, and Spurs to lose 3-0 at home to Manchester City. If you can do better, you can pick all 3 games. If you get 1 right, you get a €1 free bet. If you get 2, you get a €5 free bet. And if you get all 3, you win €100. Play with Ladbrokes 1, 2, 3 right now on Ladbrokes.com. Kevin, thanks a million for joining us again. Look, it's going to be an interesting first week. Newcastle and West Ham, I'm pretty sure, was on the first day of the season last year as well. When Jeff Hendrick scored, we all thought that it was going to be a big signing. It didn't go too well for Jeff. We'll see how it goes this year. But enjoy the first weekend of the Premier League anyway. I think it's something that sometimes we can be a little bit sort of jaded still, especially on tournament years, and then it all kicks off and we're into it and we're all races.
I wasn't looking forward to it, to be honest. I hadn't put any thought into it, but just knowing I was coming on here, and now after doing the show, I am actually looking forward to the first weekend of the season. So hopefully we have that influence on some of the listeners, Mick.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, they've set through a half an hour of us talking about it now, so if long, I hope they're going to watch the games anyway. So, Kevin, thanks a million for joining us. We'll be back with more build-up next week. So have a good weekend.